Welcome to another edition of Handicap Born Black in America. I'm your host, Ramon Roan. It's being brought to you by Judicial Freedom Riders. Please visit us at www.jfrinc.org. Today's video is entitled Black Poverty. Recently I listened to a segment on Bill Reilly's show, The Factor, and his guest was Goldberg, and they were talking about why there is poverty in the black community. And he mentioned about, out of wedlock births, the lack of marriages, men not staying with the family. He mentioned everything, but he mentioned racism. He said racism is not a factor. Now I took issue with that because in America and black people, racism is always a factor. Isn't that something on the factor? Racism is always a factor. When blacks don't have the same opportunities for employment, don't have the same opportunities for business opportunities, racism is the factor. I know many businessmen, black businessmen, they can't get government contracts because of the color of their skin. They can't get it. I know people who have applied for jobs, qualified for the job, that are black, they don't get it. I know people right now that have college education and they're working for the city or maybe a private company. A giving example of Boeing. I have a friend of mine, he was employed at Boeing, has his master's degree in business, and his supervisor, now he's black with a master's degree, or let's not even say master's degree, let's just say a degree in business administration. And his supervisor is a white guy that only has a GED, and that's suspect about him having a GED. That is what you have to deal with. When Solomon O'Brien did the Black in America on CNN, look, we have it much harder even in employment. So when we're looking at an employment rate of black people at being at 12%, which that's not the real unemployment rate. The real unemployment rate is more like 37.72%. However, when you're dealing with that, guess what? If you have such a high unemployment rate, there's going to be less marriages. That don't mean there's going to be less sex, because men and women, they're going to have sex. That's true. But there's going to be less marriages because that man, that brother, that young brother or older brother, if he can't afford to support a family, he's not going to get married. When people get married, a man decides to get married, he says, I can afford to take care of a family. But if you got an unemployment rate so high, he can't afford to take care of a family. Oh yeah, it'd be nice that you meet a woman that says, don't worry honey, you don't have to have a job, or you can go ahead and still continue working at Burger King and we'll get married. 9 times out of 10, a woman is not going to marry a man who's washing cars. That's all he can do. He's not going to marry a man that way. So poverty continues in this country because of racism, not because of people not getting married. The facts are is that, yeah, it is true that when people become married, they're less likely to be in poverty. However, you first got to get to a point where I can get married. If he can barely support himself or being able to maintain a decent employment level, how can he look to get married? You can't. Most men, they don't want to be living off of the wife. They don't want to do that. They want to be able to support their family. And the only way they can do that, their obstacle is racism. It's not the poverty that's in the black community. It's primarily due to racism in this country. It's not like in 1964, they passed a law saying that there could be no more discrimination, and discrimination ended. It did not end in 1964. Discrimination continues to this day. And until we address racism effectively, because this country has not, and I repeat, this country has not addressed racism properly. If it had addressed racism properly, our poverty level would not be where it is. And there's some things that the government has been doing to continue to make poverty even more, to increase the poverty level. And I'll explain that in the welfare model. That model is like, hey, you don't have to worry about work, and we're going to go ahead and take care of you. So it creates a crutch, not as we want to say it. It's not I believe said that safety net. No, it's a crutch. They want that as a crutch, and they don't want you to get. I'm not saying at all, people. They don't, but there's a system that wants you to stay on welfare. Don't want you to get off of welfare, and don't want you to prosper. And that's the thing. If we look at Tulsa, if we look at the Wilmington, the Wall Street, the Black Wall Streets that we had in this country in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you look at that, why can't we duplicate that now? I want to tell you why. It's racism. And until this country, this is not just a black problem, this is an American problem. Until this country addressed racism effectively, and I mean effectively, not just in a civil manner to where you're suing a company or organization that's discriminating. I'm talking about criminal. It's a crime, and somebody needs to go to jail. Not just because you violated somebody's civil rights and you decide, okay, well, we're going to incarcerate you because you killed that person by violating their civil rights. No, if you violated somebody's civil rights, they don't have to die. It shouldn't mean that they have to die to where somebody's incarcerated. No, if they violated if a white person or a person violates a black person's civil rights, they need to be incarcerated. There needs to be a punishment, not just a monetary punishment. There needs to be a penalty of incarceration. That is how you're going to deal with it, because guess what? They'll be changing their behavior. Now they change, the racists have changed their behavior and made it, instead of overt, such as the Jim Crow era, it's gone underground. But until we deal with racism, poverty in America among blacks is going to continue. There are going to be less blacks getting married. There are going to be more abortions. There are going to be more single mothers until we deal with the issue of racism. This has been another edition of Handicap, Born Black in America. And to Bernie Goldberg and Bill O'Reilly, know your role.